The underestimated species. The crystal spires of the Zephyrian High Command gleamed under three purple suns as Admiral Crickstall reviewed the latest intelligence reports. His eight-fingered hands moved across the holographic display with practiced precision, sorting through data from the Outer Rim territories. Most reports were routine. Trade disputes, minor piracy, the usual chaos that plagued the galaxy's edge. But one file made him pause. Species designation: human. Origin: Sol system, third planet. Classification: primitive carbon-based bipeds. Crickstall's mandibles clicked in mild interest. The Zephyrian Collective had cataloged over 10,000 sentient species across their domain, most falling into predictable categories. The humans appeared unremarkable. Short-lived, fractious, lacking any significant technological advancement beyond basic fusion drives. Their ships were crude metal constructs held together by welds and determination, rather than elegant crystalline matrices that defined proper starship design. What caught his attention was not their primitive nature, but their audacity. 3 rotations ago, a human vessel had wandered into the sacred nexus of remembrance, an ancient memorial site where the first Zephyrian colonists had died establishing their empire. The humans had not merely trespassed, they had accidentally collided with one of the sacred obelisks while attempting to dock at what they mistook for a space station. The incident report filed by Seekervoth, the collective's xenosociologist, painted a disturbing picture. When confronted about the damage, the human captain had not groveled for forgiveness or offered immediate reparations. Instead, he had laughed. Actually laughed. Then he had said something the translation matrix struggled to process. "Well, that's gonna leave a mark. Sorry about your fancy space rock, folks. We'll pay for damages, but honestly, you might want to put up some warning signs." Crickstall reread the report 3 times. In 5,000 years of Zephyrian expansion, no species had ever responded to accusations of desecrating sacred sites with humor and casual dismissal. Most offered elaborate apologies, some declared war, but none had simply shrugged and treated it like a minor traffic accident. The human captain, one Elena Vasquez according to the records, had gone further. When informed that the nexus was considered inviolate and that her species would need to submit to collective authority for proper judgment, she had transmitted a response that still made Crickstall's translator circuits struggle. "Yeah, that's not happening. Thanks for the offer, but we'll pass on the whole subjugation thing. We've got places to be and things to blow up. Not your things, mind you, unless you make it our problem." The transmission had ended with something the humans called music, a chaotic arrangement of sounds that somehow conveyed both defiance and amusement. Seekervoth's analysis suggested it was a form of psychological warfare, though the xenosociologist admitted confusion about its purpose. Admiral Crickstall summoned his tactical council. The 12 senior commanders of the 4th Expansion Fleet materialized as holograms around the crystal table, their forms shimmering in the artificial twilight of the command chamber. Each represented millions of years of military tradition, their strategies tested across countless campaigns of systematic conquest. "The human question requires resolution," Crickstall announced, his voice carrying the harmonics of absolute authority. "They have refused incorporation into the collective and shown disrespect for our sacred sites. Standard protocols apply." Commander Zethros, his carapace scarred from the Regelian campaigns, leaned forward. Their fleet strength: minimal. 47 vessels of various classifications, all primitive. No energy shielding, no quantum entanglement communications, no gravitic manipulation capabilities. They use chemical propulsion and nuclear fusion. Their largest ship masses barely 800,000 tons. The Council's mandibles clicked in collective amusement. Commander Veltar, veteran of the Andromedian pacification, spoke next. "Resistance potential: negligible. Their species lacks psionic capability, their technology is centuries behind standard, and their government structure appears fragmented. They maintain separate nation-states even within their home system. Unity of command seems impossible. What the report did not mention, because Krixtal had dismissed it as irrelevant, was Seeker Voth's footnote about human psychological profiles. The xenosociologist had noted unusual patterns in human behavior: extreme adaptability, irrational persistence in hopeless situations, and a tendency to find humor in circumstances that would paralyze other species with fear. Voth had recommended further study before engagement, but military minds had little patience for academic concerns. The tactical assessment was straightforward. A single squadron of Zephyrian battlecruisers would be sufficient to pacify the entire human species. Their primitive vessels would be disabled, their leadership captured, and their worlds integrated into the collective within a standard rotation. The humans would join the ranks of civilized species, their crude aggression channeled into useful labor under proper guidance. Admiral Krixtal assigned the task to Commander Drexnull, a methodical officer known for clean, efficient operations. 12 battlecruisers, each armed with molecular disruptors and protected by crystalline armor that could deflect small stellar masses. Against human technology, it would be like hunting insects with antimatter weapons. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later. Their arrival was announced with standard protocols: a demand for immediate surrender transmitted on all frequencies, followed by a demonstration of power. One of the system's smaller asteroids was selected for obliteration, vaporized by a single shot from the flagship's main battery. The human response came within hours, broadcast on primitive radio waves that the Zephyrians had to modify their equipment to receive. Captain Elena Vasquez appeared on screen, her dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, her uniform bearing patches and insignia that seemed more decorative than functional. Behind her, other humans moved with casual efficiency, apparently unconcerned by the massive alien fleet in their space. "Well, hello there," she said, her voice carrying that strange quality the translator identified as amusement. "Nice ships you've got there. Very shiny. Very geometric. I'm Captain Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force, which is a fancy name we just made up for the occasion, since apparently we need to sound official now." She paused, consulting a device in her hand. "So, you want us to surrender? Unconditionally. Join your collective. Submit to your authority. Stop being human and start being. What did you call yourselves?" "Zephyrians. Cool name, by the way. Very breathy." Commander Drexnull expected pleading, perhaps offers of negotiation, maybe threats or desperate bravado. What he got was something entirely different. Captain Vasquez smiled. It was not a diplomatic smile or a nervous grimace. It was the expression of someone who had just heard an excellent joke. "Here's the thing, though. We talked it over. All of us, across the whole system. And we decided to respectfully decline your generous offer. See, we've got this whole thing about not kneeling to anyone, even really advanced space empires with big guns. It's kind of our brand." She gestured to someone off-screen, and the view expanded to show the bridge of her ship. It was cramped, filled with humans working at stations that looked like they had been assembled from spare parts. Everything was mismatched, improvised, held together with what appeared to be colored tape and sheer stubbornness. Yet the crew moved with practiced coordination, their faces showing not fear but anticipation. "So here's what's going to happen," Vasquez continued, her tone conversational. "You're going to leave our system, not because we're asking nicely, but because if you don't, we're going to make you leave. Yes, I know you have bigger ships and better technology. Yes, I know you've conquered everyone else. But here's what you don't know about humans. We're really, really good at making problems for people who try to push us around." The transmission ended with that chaos of sound the humans called music, something with heavy percussion and aggressive vocals that made the Zephyrian translation circuits overload with static. Commander Drexnull stared at the blank screen for several moments. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever responded to overwhelming force with mockery and casual dismissal. His tactical training had no protocols for dealing with enemies who seemed genuinely amused by their impending destruction. The human fleet emerged from behind their moon 6 hours later. 47 ships against 12, but the disparity in firepower was astronomical. The largest human vessel was smaller than a Zephyrian escort frigate. Their formation was loose, almost casual, lacking the precise geometry that defined proper military movement. Commander Drexnell ordered a standard engagement pattern. His battlecruisers formed a perfect hexagonal array, each ship's field of fire overlapping to create an impenetrable zone of destruction. Molecular disruptors charged, targeting systems locked onto the primitive human vessels. It would be over in minutes. The humans opened fire first. The human way of war. The emergency assembly of the Zephyrian High Council convened in the sacred chamber beneath the ice caps of Zephyr Prime. Representatives from 1,200 worlds materialized in crystalline glory, their forms shimmering with the cold light of authority. For the first time in recorded history, the agenda contained a single item: the human problem. Admiral Crickstall stood before the assembly, his military decorations dimmed in shame. The report of Commander Drexnell's defeat had spread through the collective like a virus, undermining 5 millennia of assumed superiority. 12 battlecruisers had been humiliated by primitive humans using weapons that belonged in a museum. Worse, the humans had enjoyed themselves while doing it. Supreme Chancellor Vexful, eldest of the Council and witness to the collective's greatest triumphs, spoke with the voice of crystallized time. Explain this impossibility. Admiral, how do insects defeat starships? How do primitives overcome perfection? Crickstall accessed his tactical memories, replaying the battle data for the assembled leaders. The holographic display showed the human ships dancing through space, their movements chaotic yet effective, their laughter echoing across the void as they systematically disabled advanced war machines with what amounted to sophisticated slingshots. They fight without pattern, he explained, his voice carrying undertones of confusion. Our tactical algorithms predict behavior based on logical optimization. The humans do not optimize. They improvise. When their weapons fail, they use their ships as weapons. When their ships fail, they ram us with debris. When debris fails, they broadcast surrender offers that explode when we try to accept them. The Assembly's collective consciousness processed this information with growing unease. The Zephyrian way of war was elegant, overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision, enemies given the opportunity to surrender before being efficiently destroyed. It was clean, predictable, and had worked against every species they had ever encountered. Council member Zertix of the Outer Rim territories spoke next. What of their technology? Surely primitive weapons cannot threaten our fleet assets. Their technology is adaptive, Crickstall replied, struggling with concepts that had no place in Zephyrian thought. They build ships from scavenged materials, modify weapons during combat, and repurpose defensive systems as offensive tools. Their vessels are not designed. They are evolved. Each ship is different, yet they coordinate as if sharing a single mind. What the Admiral could not explain, because he lacked the cultural framework to understand it, was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history as persistence hunters. They did not run faster than their prey or possess superior strength. Instead, they simply refused to give up, following wounded animals across impossible distances until exhaustion claimed their victims. This same relentless persistence now applied to warfare in ways that made Zephyrian strategic doctrine obsolete. Supreme Chancellor Vexthul consulted the sacred algorithms, seeking guidance from the mathematical principles that had governed their expansion. The calculations were clear. A fleet of 500 battlecruisers would be sufficient to sterilize every human world within a single rotation. Overwhelming force would negate their unpredictability. The order went out across the collective. Total mobilization against the human threat. From the core worlds to the rim territories, warships converged on staging areas near the Sol system. It was the largest military operation in Zephyrian history, designed to end the human problem with such decisive force that no other species would dare follow their example of defiant laughter. Admiral Krickstall was given overall command, his failure transformed into motivation. The new fleet included not just battle cruisers but dreadnoughts. Massive vessels capable of cracking planets, their weapons designed to reach into the quantum foundations of matter itself. Against such power, human ingenuity would be meaningless. Yet as the Great Armada assembled, troubling reports filtered in from the human territories. Rather than preparing desperate defenses or fleeing to distant stars, the humans appeared to be celebrating. Long-range sensors detected massive gatherings on their worlds, primitive electromagnetic transmissions carrying what appeared to be entertainment broadcasts, and an inexplicable increase in the production of their chaotic music. Dr. Marcus Chen, Earth's foremost xenotechnology specialist, worked feverishly in his laboratory aboard Luna Station. The wreckage of 3 Zephyrian battlecruisers had provided him with samples of their crystalline armor and molecular disruptor technology. What he discovered challenged everything he thought he knew about physics. The Zephyrians built their technology like they built their society. Perfect, immutable, designed to function in specific ways under specific conditions. Their weapons were incredibly powerful, but could only operate within narrow parameters. Their armor was nearly impenetrable but shattered catastrophically when subjected to the right frequency of vibration. They're obsessed with perfection, he explained to Captain Vasquez during a secure transmission. Every ship identical, every weapon calibrated to mathematical precision, every tactical doctrine refined through thousands of years of success. It's beautiful, but it's also brittle. Elena Vasquez nodded from her position aboard the redesigned battleship Terran Pride, formerly a cargo hauler that had been transformed into humanity's first true warship through the application of duct tape, determination, and weaponized creativity. So what you're telling me is that they can't adapt when their perfect plan falls apart. Exactly. But Elena, they're bringing 500 ships this time. 500 perfect, identical, coordinated killing machines. Our trick with the kinetic projectiles won't work twice. Vasquez grinned, her expression visible to the dozen other human captains participating in the conference call. Good thing we got about 1,000 new tricks. Chen, remember what you told me about their communication systems? Quantum entanglement networks, the scientist replied. Instantaneous communication across any distance, but it requires perfect synchronization. If you could disrupt the quantum pairs. Already on it. Morrison's been working with the music boys. Turns out that jazz musicians understand chaos theory better than most physicists. Who knew? Commander Jake Morrison, pilot of the experimental fighter craft Screaming Eagle, joined the conversation from his position near Jupiter's moons. His ship was even more improvised than the others, built around a human pilot's chair surrounded by weapons systems scavenged from 12 different sources. It looked like it had been assembled by enthusiastic children with unlimited access to military hardware. The quantum thing is easy, Morrison said, his voice carrying the casual confidence that had terrified the Zephyrians. Their networks rely on harmonic frequencies. Disrupt the harmony, break their coordination. I've got a few ideas about that. The human defense plan was not really a plan at all. It was jazz improvisation applied to warfare. A basic theme with infinite variations, each ship captain free to interpret the music as they saw fit. The Terran Defense Force had grown from 47 ships to nearly 200, every vessel unique, every crew trained in the peculiarly human art of making it up as they went along. When the Zephyrian Armada emerged from hyperspace, it presented a sight that would have shattered the morale of any conventional military force. 500 identical warships arranged in perfect geometric formation, their crystalline hulls gleaming with the cold light of mathematical precision. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, capable of reducing a moon to component atoms. The human response fleet was a chaos of mismatched ships, impromptu modifications, and vessels that looked like they had been built in someone's garage by people who had never seen a proper blueprint. They moved in loose formation, if it could be called a formation at all, their communications channels filled with music, laughter, and what appeared to be cooking instructions. Admiral Kriegstall observed the enemy deployment with growing confusion. The humans had positioned their largest ships not in the center of their formation, but scattered seemingly at random. Smaller vessels darted between them in patterns that defied tactical analysis. Most disturbing of all, several human ships appeared to be broadcasting entertainment signals while approaching what should have been their doom. All ships, commence standard assault pattern, Kriegstall commanded. The Zephyrian fleet moved with perfect coordination, 500 vessels sliding into attack position like a single enormous organism. Molecular disruptors charge, targeting systems locked onto human vessels, quantum networks synchronizing for maximum efficiency. The humans opened fire with music. Not weapons. Actual music. Transmitted on every frequency the Zephyrians used for coordination, the chaotic sounds of human creativity flooded their communication networks. Jazz improvisation, heavy metal percussion, and something the humans called dubstep created a cacophony that overwhelmed their quantum entanglement systems. Within seconds, the perfect Zephyrian formation began to drift as ships lost synchronization with the fleet network. Commanders found themselves cut off from central command, their tactical displays showing static instead of strategic information. The mathematical precision that defined their way of war dissolved into confusion. Phase 2. Captain Vasquez announced cheerfully. "Jake, you're up." Commander Morrison's fighter wings swept through the disrupted Zephyrian formation like vengeful spirits. The human pilots flew ships that should not have been able to function, using tactics that should not have been possible. They barrel-rolled through energy weapon fire, used their own vessels as projectiles, and somehow managed to coordinate complex maneuvers while singing along to the music that was jamming enemy communications. The Zephyrian point defense systems, calibrated to intercept missiles and energy blasts, could not track targets that moved like living things instead of ballistic projectiles. Human fighters danced between the massive warships, placing precise charges on quantum network relays and communication arrays. Each explosion was small, but the cumulative effect was devastating. "They're inside our formation," Admiral Kriegstall realized with horror. "How are they inside our formation?" The answer came from an impossible source. Laughter echoing across emergency frequencies as human pilots performed maneuvers that violated several laws of physics. One fighter, its hull decorated with what appeared to be cartoon characters, spun through a cloud of molecular disruptor fire while its pilot provided cheerful commentary. "Oh, that was close. Did you see that, folks? Nearly got my tail feathers singed on that one." But the true horror began when the human capital ships revealed their modifications. The cargo haulers and converted civilian vessels opened their holds to release clouds of what Admiral Kriegstall first mistook for debris. Only when the clouds began moving in coordinated patterns did he realize they were autonomous weapons, thousands of small, independently operating units that scattered throughout the Zephyrian formation. These were not sophisticated military drones. They appeared to be constructed from household appliances, children's toys, and civilian electronics, all repurposed for warfare through the application of human ingenuity and what could only be described as aggressive creativity. They swarmed the Zephyrian ships like mechanical insects, attaching themselves to hull plating and beginning systematic sabotage. "They're hacking our ships with kitchen equipment," reported Commander Drexnull, his voice filled with disbelief. "The small units appear to be using modified food processors to interface with our systems." The battle devolved into chaos as Zephyrian crews found themselves fighting off an invasion of weaponized appliances, while human ships continued their impossible dance through space. The mathematical perfection of their formation collapsed entirely as individual vessels found themselves isolated, confused, and under attack by enemies that should not have been capable of threatening them. Dr. Chen's analysis of Zephyrian technology had revealed their greatest weakness. They designed their systems to be tamper-proof, which meant they were also adaptation-proof. When humans began connecting modified civilian electronics to their quantum networks, the Zephyrian computers did not recognize the intrusion as an attack. They simply tried to incorporate the foreign systems into their own, creating cascading failures that spread through their entire fleet. Captain Vasquez watched the enemy formation disintegrate with satisfaction. The Zephyrians were retreating again, their perfect ships limping back toward hyperspace, while human crews celebrated with music, laughter, and what appeared to be an impromptu poetry reading transmitted on all frequencies. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship." The image of Admiral Crixtal appeared on screen, his crystalline features dimmed with defeat. "Captain Vasquez," he said formally, "the Zephyrian collective wishes to negotiate." Elena smiled, the same expression that had so disturbed the aliens during their first encounter. "Well, hello there, Admiral. Fancy meeting you here again. How did that mathematical precision work out for you?" "Your species," Crixtal continued, ignoring the casual mockery, "fights in ways we do not understand. You use chaos as a weapon. You find joy in circumstances that should inspire terror. You turn our strengths against us through methods that defy tactical analysis." "Yeah, that's us," Vasquez agreed cheerfully. "We're pretty good at being difficult. So, what's this about negotiation? Because if it's another surrender demand, I should warn you that we've come up with some really creative ways to say no since last time." The Zephyrian admiral was quiet for a long moment, his form flickering in the holographic display. When he spoke again, his voice carried something that had never before entered Zephyrian military communications: uncertainty. "The collective has a proposal," he said finally. "A treaty. Non-aggression. Mutual respect for territorial boundaries. Recognition of human sovereignty over your claimed space." Captain Vasquez raised an eyebrow. "And in return?" "Nothing," Crixtal replied. "We ask for nothing in return except that you remain in your own territory, and perhaps provide advance warning before employing your unconventional tactics elsewhere in the galaxy." The human captain laughed, the sound that had become the Zephyrian collective's greatest fear. "Admiral, you've got yourself a deal. But I should probably mention that we're planning to explore the galaxy a bit. Nothing aggressive, just curious humans doing human things. You know how we are about laughing at the universe." As the Zephyrian fleet retreated once again, carrying news of humanity's second impossible victory, word spread throughout the galaxy that a new power had emerged. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple refusal to take the universe seriously. The humans had not just defeated the Zephyrian collective twice. They had done something far more dangerous. They had made the galaxy's greatest military power afraid of their laughter. And in the depths of space, as human ships continued their chaotic dance among the stars, that laughter echoed across the void, carrying a message that would reshape galactic civilization. Sometimes the best way to win is to refuse to play by the rules. The age of human expansion had begun, not with conquest, but with the most powerful weapon in their arsenal: the refusal to be impressed by impossible odds.